Now for a quick rundown on how the coffee from the plantation gets to the jar in your supermarket. The farmer grows the coffee and sells it to a mill for processing. After this processing has taken place, they then sell it to an exporter. The exporter then sells it to roasting or freeze-drying companies for further processing into what you see in your jar. And then after this they are packaged and marketed and sent around the world to your local supermarket. The tendency of investment funds and businesses to move beyond domestic and national markets to other markets around the globe, thereby increasing the interconnectedness of different markets. So is this creation of a singular global market a good thing? Let's have a look. Coffee is the largest agricultural export worldwide, worth approximately $30 billion a year. Large corporations like Nestle and Sara Lee rake in a profit of around $1 billion each year. These corporations provide employment and cheaper goods for millions of people around the world. The concept of globalization is one that shows many promising opportunities for the unemployed in developing nations and allows much more accessibility into the goods and services as well as the cultures and traditions of other countries. However, there is a dark side to this global meshing of markets. Farmers of particular crops suffer cheap imports with very competitive prices, often too much for farmers to match. And large companies with the funds to expand usually head overseas in search of cheaper labor. These things are both very problematic when looking at the recent crisis of falling coffee prices over the last 15 years. And it is not only developing countries who will suffer. What about the exportation of Australian jobs to places like Colombia and India, where they earn less than a tenth of the minimum wage in the USA, UK and Australia? Who is profiting if not the employees with minimal working rights and job safety? Do back the things it did to you in return. The coffee crisis started at the end of the International Coffee Agreement, the ICA, in 1989. Without this agreement, anyone could produce and buy as much coffee as they wished. This caused an overabundance in green coffee beans, which led to a crash in prices. The major problem lies with struggling coffee farmers, and the solution is partially dependent on the large coffee roasting companies, which could be pretty tricky. There are hundreds of small coffee plantations in places like Bangladesh, Vietnam, and Peru who are suffering the iron fist of these falling coffee prices. Many cannot even cover their costs of production, and with coffee prices at a 30-year low, this isn't likely to solve itself. 70% of the world's coffee is grown on areas of land no more than 100 square kilometers, and most of these are less than half this size. These small peasant farming lots have allowed farmers the resources to keep their families well nourished, access to medicines and education, and even enough money to employ casual workers during harvest season. However, with the recent flood of supply into the world market and the subsequent downfall of coffee bean prices, these farmers have been unable to maintain this standard of living. A number of countries rely on the revenue from their coffee exports, and have previously found the farming of coffee as an efficient source of income for a vast majority of their population. Brunei's dependence on coffee is rather extreme, as shown here, as its trading of coffee equated for 79% of all of its export revenue. This is just a sample of a greater population's reliance on the production of coffee. Here we see a map depicting the countries with active coffee farming industries. It is plain to see here that many of these countries are situated on or around the equator, as it is these places that hold the ideal weather and agricultural conditions for the farming of this crop. This provided a rather restricted access to these places, and therefore became a way of living that would be seemingly sheltered from the worldwide competition. But as coffee became a more globalized commodity, with more coffee shops and cafes opening up all around the world, it attracted more and more people to the prospect of growing this golden bean. And then, with the ICA breaking down in 1989, there became no regulation of supply. Before this point, producers had to comply with a set quota, only exceeding this when the demand became extremely high. This breakdown of the ICA abolished the safety net that this type of regulation provided, and anyone was allowed to enter the market and produce what they liked. And as supply goes up, price falls. And when price of a product falls below the cost of production, as is the case with coffee, people either produce more, creating a vicious cycle, or change what they produce, which can take years due to the amount of land and the cost of reproducing another crop, which can have disastrous effects. Although this boom in production made things a lot harder, it is what the major roasting and freezing companies like Nestle, Kraft, and Sara Lee are doing that are creating such protest. These companies are making a profit of $1 billion each year from their sales. How is it justified that a number of farmers are not even making any form of margin, and the ones lucky enough to can barely afford to keep food on the table? It has been estimated that Nestle make a profit of about 30% with each cup of coffee sold. Compare this to the profit of farmers, millers, or even the exporters. US 1 cent markup per kilogram of green beans. And this hardly seems fair. The problem isn't just companies either. According to a report, richer countries subsidized their farmers in 2000 $245 billion, which only brings more peril to the livelihoods of farmers in developing countries, as they cannot compete with the competitive prices being introduced. So when the value of coffee is so diminished that the risks of changing crops seem like the only way out, and then the economy is flooded with cheap imported goods, options become very limited. Some result in the illegal growing of coca, the main substance in the illegal drug cocaine, as they are so debt-ridden that this seems like the only cost-effective way of providing enough money to get them out. There are solutions, however they will not be quick to come into effect. It has been suggested that rich governments and companies pay for the destruction of around 5 million bags of coffee to bring the world supply down to its demand, if not below. The re-implementation of a revised version of the International Coffee Organization's ICA would also be a part of bringing order back to a state of sustainability. This would then set a boundary for supply, making sure no one floods the market again, keeping prices steady and perhaps even at a reasonable value. It has also been suggested that roasting companies pay a standardized fee to farmers to help raise prices of coffee beans themselves, or even a benchmark price for these companies to pay producers to vary according to demand. It is foolish to try and put a stop to globalization entirely, as many Western countries as well as developing countries rely on it for foods, medicine, education, and employment. It is more important, however, to find a balance, an equilibrium in which the global trade of resources and skills can leave all parties better off rather than in debt and impoverished. Globalization should be about uniting a world, not uniting under a singular group power.